What is going on, Sabres fans, and welcome to another episode of the Sabres Spotlight podcast, where we shine a light on all things Sabres hockey. Ryan, what's going on?
Not a whole lot, dude. We're getting right into it with the hockey talk because Sabres training camp has already started. We're already 2 days in, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about around the league too. So hey, we're getting into the thick of it already. I love it.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast that went, and we're only a couple weeks away from opening the season in Prague against the Devils with back-to-back games against them. So that'll be fun and exciting. Buffalo Bills football's in full swing, and now we got hockey ramping up. So it's a good time for sports. We'll get into the Sabres here in just a couple seconds. I got something I want to mention in the introduction here, but you got anything for the peeps before I kind of take away what's been going on with me over the last few days?
I don't have much to add since the last time we spoke. Just hanging out, working, trying to survive, going through some stuff, cleaning my house just like religiously. A term that I learned recently is called nesting. And if anyone knows what that is, I am in the thick of nesting right now, and it is actually a wild thing.
What's the actual like? I mean, I've heard that, but what does that like actually mean?
So it's pretty much like for the mothers only. Well, I guess for the fathers too, since I'm experiencing it myself. But like when like it's like mother's intuition or parents' intuition to like get your like area or house like ready for an incoming baby, and I just find myself cleaning constantly. Like like my wife always has our house like spick and span. It's always clean, but like lately, I'm just like on top of it. It is weird, man. And I'm not lazy by any means. But I'm just like this has to get done. Like this has to get done. This has to get done. Like why is this out of place? Just stuff like that. And it's just like driving me nuts. So
I
we're
love it.
almost there. We're almost to the end here.
I love it. So you just got like a spotless house right now. That's awesome.
It's yeah. It's my wife is very happy with the way our house looks.
Well, I wanted to talk real quick about the Sabres Fan Fest because I went on Saturday. So I mentioned this on the last show that I would be heading down to Fan Fest, and it was pretty cool. It was really cool. I took my daughter Riley, and it was just the two of us. So we just had kind of like, did you just mute your mic while you coughed?
Yeah, of course I did.
Dude, that is pro level podcasting right there. we are firing into season 2 here. I love it. But anyways, me and Riley went down to this fan fest, and it was awesome. We had a bunch of fun. So the event itself ran from like 10 to 6, I think, and they had a lot of stuff going on throughout the day. And Riley, we were there for I think like 3 hours at one point. And I asked her, I'm like, all right, are you ready to go home? She's like, no, I'm having fun. I want to stay. So we ended up staying
Oh,
at this thing for
really?
like, yeah, yeah, she loved it. So I ended up staying for like 4.5 hours, and it was really fun, man. She got like a little like glitter tattoo of like the Sabres on her arm. They had a lot of stuff for the kids. They had like face paintings. They had like these like big blocks the kids could play with. There was a few different like hockey things outside. So like she lined up and did like a few hockey shot like games and whatnot. And then they had the players come out and do different things like interacting with the fans on stage. So they had like Jenga with the players, which we didn't see that, but I saw them doing like Saber logo drawings. And it was kind of cool because they would bring like three players out at a time. And when we were watching, it was Owen Power, which was cool because my son Owen, so Riley got a kick out of Owen's Power's name being Owen. And then Zach Benson, the Goblin himself, and Jason Zucker. So it's kind of cool because like I love Zach and Owen, and then kind of cool to see the new guy in there as well. But it was just really awesome. We had a fun time, like a nice little like kind of daddy daughter day there to kind of kick off the weekend. So that was really good, and it was buzzing. There's a lot of people there, so it was kind of nice to see people getting excited for the new season coming up.
That's cool. I mean, I love that they do stuff for the kids like that. Like that's getting them started like, young, like, how like your daughter's age. That's something that she'll remember, and be like, "Hey, can we watch hockey, Daddy? Can we watch hockey?" I would. Oh my God, that's good. That's gonna be so cool. When
Yeah,
maybe, she's smart too. So I wonder if she'll remember like Owen Power.
yeah, yeah. Well, when they called his name, she was like, "Oh, like our Owen." It was like a
No
cute
way.
like little thing.
Oh
Oh
man,
yeah, 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 yeah.
she's so smart. It's so funny.
So that was cool. And then real quick, and then we'll get into to the Sabres real quick. Here, one other thing I want to mention. So I had, if you're listening to this show, tonight's Thursday, so we're recording this on Thursday night. I had the day off, and I want to just kind of like shout out myself real quick because it's been kind of a crazy. I'm shouting out myself. It's been a crazy week at work, and I've kind of been. Everyone has those weeks at work where you're just kind of like you're just you're just not just at work. I guess in general, you're just feeling like a little run down, just kind of like tired and stuff. It just kind of like beat. You need a little break. I had a day off with the kids today, and I feel like we had an awesome day. Like I was just like having had a great day with them. We went to the zoo and had just a lot of fun and just kind of enjoyed being around them. And I'm just kind of reflecting on my day as we start to record here. I'm just like, man, I had a really good day, kind of hit the reset, and now here we are, ready to get on the mic and talk about some Sabres and the Sabres hitting reset on a new season. So it was a good day, rejuvenated. So I feel ready to go.
Dad of the fucking year right here, guys. Dad of the year.
It was great, man. It was awesome. But with that, you ready to talk Sabres?
Let's get into the around the league first.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. What am I doing? I'm going out of order here. All right. Well, we got to start with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Sid the Kid, getting his deal, an $8.7 million AAV for 2 years. So he extends with the Penguins. Had 94 points in 82 games last season. What do you think about Sid the Kid here, sticking around for a couple more years? He's still got game, obviously.
Yeah, he's in my opinion he might push for a spot on the Mount Rushmore of hockey players of all time. I
Yeah,
He is the Pittsburgh Penguins franchise. He has been for the last 20 years, and he's still got game, like you said. And man, it's so funny. The 8.7 just is everywhere for him. Like it's always his AAV. Where's the number? He's such a superstitious, like maybe one of the most superstitious hockey players of all time. And it's such a quirky, weird thing about him. And yeah, we need to see Sid the Kid back in the playoffs. And I don't think the Penguins are gonna get to the playoffs, so it does kind of suck seeing him extend there. But you you don't want to really see him anywhere else but Pittsburgh. Like he needs to retire a Penguin.
I texted you that the Sabres should make a run at him, and then I think he signed that deal. Like the news of him signing that deal broke like the next day, and that was
And like
such a pipe
honestly,
dream.
it
But
was the same day.
yeah, it was like crazy how that happened. But it would have never happened. But I was like, man, they should just they should just give Pittsburgh whatever they want. But I kind of hope that we don't see Sid in the playoffs because there's no way they're finishing top three, and that means they're taking a wild card spot, and the Sabres need one of those. So I kind of hope that they suck again. But I get what you're saying, the sentiment about the Penguins, being good and
I
being in the
mean,
playoffs.
looking at their roster, we're not talking about the East today, but they're kind of brutal. Like they got like
Yeah,
four really good players, and then the roster is just like it's basically Sidney Crosby at this point, and then like a couple shells of future Hall of Famers.
well, that was the speculation around the contract too about him coming back because it's like they're not necessarily projected to be like a good team or a top team. So there was all the schools of thought about out there about like, oh, will he resign? Obviously, he can still play, but is he going to want to come back knowing where the franchise is at, and can he handle not making the playoffs or whatever? And clearly that didn't matter. I think it's interesting too because he probably could have broke them for more money. But if you listen to 32 Thoughts, he was saying that he doesn't want to be set up for like a long term contract or like a huge AAV. Even though 8.7 is still a lot, but like again, he could have got more. They would have given him it. Where like he's feeling like he's putting the Penguins in a bind. So he was like taking what he thought was good for the franchise and for him.
I think that I read somewhere that throughout the lifetime of his career that he has given up like a projected 40 million from what he could have made.
Yeah.
Just he could have taken the max or like close to the max or like whatever it was like in his heyday, like late 2010s or late 2000s, like early to mid 2010s when he was like a unanimous MVP all the time, and he was just always leaving enough money for the Penguins to do whatever they needed to do to win cups, and they won multiple with him. So what great,
Hmm.
like one of the all time like best hockey people, best teammates there is.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, with that, we'll transition to someone who doesn't have a contract yet, and that's Jeremy Swayman, who remains unsigned. He's not reporting to Bruins training camp. He wants that new deal. And just a few tidbits here before we get into it. So, if Swayman doesn't sign before the season begins and remains unsigned by December 1st, and he's out for the season. He has to sign
Yep.
a contract before December 1st if he wants to play this year. And this is a guy who had a great postseason, a 2.15 goals against and a .933 or a 933 save percentage in the postseason last year after a strong regular season as well. The thing with this is that the season prior, the Bruins were going back and forth between him and Allmark, and then they kind of made the stand this year that Swayman was going to be the guy, and then they ended up trading Allmark to the Senators in June. So it's a bit strange, just given the fact that they kind of showed them that he's their guy during the playoff run last season. They shipped Allmark out, and here he is still waiting for a contract. What do you think is going to happen here?
He deserves, I think, at least $8 million on his next deal. Like he's a franchise goaltender, one of the best in the league. Did you see Don Sweeney talking to the media yesterday, the Bruins GM, at all?
No.
Okay, so you know how the Chicklets crew has been like talking about this. They're obviously connected to the Bruins with how the proximity to Barstool. It's a Boston-based company, and like they operate out of New York, but there's a ton of like Bruins fans there. So they know things. They know things about the Bruins. I mean, they're obviously friends with a bunch of the players, and I think Biz was saying that Uh, Swayman deserves an 8x8 at least, and he's hearing that, or him or Witt, which one? I'm not sure which one was saying that the Bruins are offering 6 million a year. Well, Don Sweeney yesterday goes into the media and he says something akin to "Don't believe what they're saying on the Spitting Up All Over Yourself podcast because what they're saying isn't true." So he's taking shots at them. They're sticking up for Swayman. Obviously, they're a players podcast, so they're gonna like stick up for the player, obviously, in this situation. And I think Swayman deserves to get paid. And if there's any disarray in the Bruins organization because of this, hey, I welcome it. But
I welcome
they got
it.
to
Yeah,
pay this guy.
exactly.
They have nobody behind him. They have Corpusalo, who they got in the Allmark deal, but Corpusalo isn't great. So this is crazy for the Bruins because for a couple years now, I really feel like them having the best goalie in almost every single matchup they've had over the last 3 seasons ish, where had that they had Allmark and Swayman, that doesn't exist anymore because sometimes they got to play Corpusalo, who's not a good goalie, and if they get a cold Swayman, it might take him a couple like starts to get going here. So the Bruins are really losing their advantage of having the best goalie on the ice at almost all times.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens here. I I don't know, man. I mean, there's obviously a rift and an indecision between both sides, and it's got to be on that number. Obviously, I don't know. I wonder if I kind of feel like the Bruins, their team philosophy is just not wanting to pay like one stud goaltender. So I feel like I kind of feel like they don't want to do it. I don't know. I can just kind of see this getting dragged out potentially like into this season. As much as that sucks for both parties, it doesn't really matter because we're a Sabres show anyway. So like you said, any disarray in Boston is a good thing. But you want to see guys get paid and when they're playing good. So it'd be nice to see Swayman get the contract and he deserves it. But I part of me just kind of feels like Boston doesn't want to do that or be done already. And I can just kind of see this dragging on into the season.
Don't you think, like, isn't it weird that they traded Allmark and didn't have this dealt with, like, immediately? Like, Swayman knows he's the guy. Like, they know Swayman's the guy. Like, just get it done.
Yeah, but what was the deal with that? Like, there was something. Wasn't there something with Allmark's contract where like someone I was listening to a show or somebody or I heard somewhere that like it made sense for them to do it even though Swayman wasn't done because they wanted to get something for him or his contract. Like I don't know. I feel like there was a business reason why they did
I'm
that
gonna
as
look at.
opposed to
I'm gonna go to
yeah
Puckpedia to see how long Allmark has on it, like on his contract. Because maybe
yeah
he would, maybe he needed to be re-upped as well.
there was something with it. I feel like there was a
Okay,
business.
yes, you're correct. Sorry to interrupt. He's in the final year of a $5 million cap hit contract. So he's going to be a UFA next year. So it's either he walks for nothing or he resigns, and they obviously traded him to get something. So
Yeah. So he was going to be a UFA. You said
yep,
he's going to be a
yep,
UFA next season, no matter what. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. So I guess that makes sense. And if they, uh, but what doesn't make sense is what you're saying. Like, if you were going to do it and you were willing to pull the trigger, then obviously Swayman's your guy. So like, you have to, you have to get that done. But I don't know. Maybe they weren't expecting to sign the couple free agents that they did, so they don't have as much money as they would have liked. Like who knows? But um, we'll move on to another team in the Atlantic here. Detroit signing their young guns, which this is new from last week. We were talking about how it was interesting that Mo Sider and Lucas Raymond weren't signed yet, so they both get long-term deals with the Red Wings. Mo Sider gets 7 years, 8.55 AAV, and Lucas Raymond 8-year, 8.075 AAV. So the Red Wings do lock up a couple long-term pieces here with the signings of Sider and Raymond. Not surprising, I guess.
So I have one more thought on Swayman before we talk about these two knuckleheads. Um, so when Swayman was an RFA, they actually did go to arbitration, and everyone knows that arbitration is like no bueno, bad juju for both sides because it's basically just shit talking the player and then the player saying why he deserves more money. So that could be like another wrinkle in there where like there is some bad blood between like management and Swayman there. But I just wanted to get that in before we talk about the Red Wings guys.
Yeah, I didn't know if they went to arbitration or not. I
Yep.
I could I couldn't remember that, but oh yeah, for sure. I mean, no one leaves those meetings happy.
Like
But
no one wants to hear your GM in the room be like, well, if only he saved more pucks 5 hole, we would have given him an extra $2 million. You know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Nothing good's coming from those meetings. But do you have thoughts on Sider or Raymond? Like you said, not nothing surprising here, but a couple long-term pieces locked up.
Okay. I love Lucas Raymond. I think he's awesome. I think that this is a JJ Paterka comparable contract. So this is great. When JJ inevitably has his 35 goals and 75 points this year, this is a contract that we can go to him and be like, we will give you the Raymond contract. Perfect. Great. The Sider contract, this is a hot take, but I firmly believe that with the way Detroit uses Moritz Sider, that he is a Rasmus Ristolainen 2.0. Extremely overrated, and they just bury him. Like if you look at his zone starts and like his matchups, he's getting crushed every night by every team's top line. He has no help. His partners are always terrible. They're basically ristoing this guy, and now they're giving him $8.55 million or eight
Yeah,
point
I
zero
mean, they
seven
can't
five.
bear him anymore.
Like holy shit, man! Like I get that they love him, and I know that he's like a popular player around the league, but I just there are some nights I don't see it. I see a lot of risto.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I do think the Raymond deal is like a good option for the Sabres to turn to for Paterka and for Quinn. It depends. I mean, if Quinn comes out and balls out this year, then these are still a couple options. You might be able to get away with a little more there just because of the 1 year with Quinn and some of the health issues. So who really knows there? But I like Lucas Raymond a lot as well. There was a lot of talk that they didn't want to go over Larkin's number, which I think was at like 8.75 million, which I think is fine. I wouldn't necessarily give one of these players that money anyways, but if you're looking at like the Sabres and their contracts, I don't know how much of a leverage point that is for them to be like, hey, like you're not going to go over Tage or you're not going to go over Cousins. Like they're kind of all in that like 7 range. And I know our defensemen have a little bit more between like, like obviously Darlene's deal and then Power, got the little over 8. So it'll be interesting to see if they can use some of like their current contracts on their team to kind of help with some of the signings with Peterka and Quinn. I know that's obviously a high priority for Adams, but we'll see what happens well, this is a big season for both of them. So, because if JJ
I
logs
agree.
another year and he's got 2 seasons of back-to-back production, then you're obviously paying him. And if Quinn comes out like we all want him to, because it's a good problem to have, if we got to pay him as well, then we'll see what happens with his contract. They're both going to need him though.
I agree. And like I said, I love Lucas Raymond, but I pulled up from JFresh, I pulled up Maurice Sider's microstats here. There's a lot of red on the screen. And we're not going to get into like what all this means and stuff, but this is kind of not what you want to see. Like absolutely brutal penalty killer, doesn't really provide offense, gets killed offensively or defensively at even strength. He's a good scorer, but there's just too much red here for me to justify someone getting the contract that he got. And I get they believe in him and he's young, but I guess we'll see, man. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think he's like 21 or whatever. Like
Yeah,
he's
he's very
definitely
young, but
yeah.
still, it's a lot. It's a lot to bet on.
Well, let's talk about the Sabres here now and another contract that they just handed out, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this. So we're talking, of course, of Peyton Krebs. He signs a 2-year, $2.9 million deal. Had 4 goals and 13 assists in 2023. Was of course the Sabres' last RFA. Everyone was waiting to see what happens with him. Comes in at a nice number here at 2.9 million. What's your initial reaction and thoughts to the Krebs deal?
Well, last week we were like, just sign your fucking qualifying offer, and then he ends up getting $1.4 million. Well, total almost $3 million from the team. So hey, we were wrong, and he was right for waiting. But you know, to me, he's just a depth piece. I don't see him. I don't see him in the starting lineup on night one. I think that the 4C position is Lafferty's to lose, but that doesn't mean he's not going to play. Like we're going to have injuries. He's going to get in the lineup, and I like his tenacity, but it's a nice little deal for him. I'm happy that he got the money.
It was interesting to hear. Did you hear Adam? Did you listen to Adam's presser at all or no?
I did. I heard what he said about this signing.
So it was interesting because for the listeners, if you didn't listen to Adams, they asked him about this deal and he was like, well, if he signed, the one option was for him to sign the qualifying offer, which would have been the 1 year, 874,000. But then he said, but then he was asked about the deal and he was like, well, yeah, you could ask his camp, why it took so long. He sounded kind of agitated about it and was like, oh yeah, you can ask, his camp why it took so long. And I'm kind of like, well, I'm like, if this deal was on the table the whole time, then like obviously he wasn't taking the qualifying offer. So like you had already bid that goodbye a long time ago. Like the feedback I was getting regarding it was kind of conflicting. It seemed like because he was like, oh, he could have signed the qualifying offer, but then he's also like seemed agitated that it took so long, and it's like, well, I'm pretty sure this is a good number for Krebs. So like if this was on the deal a while ago, he would have taken it, or maybe it wasn't. So I don't know what really went on here, but my thought on the contract itself is I'm fine with it because there's a little bit of freaking out going on that's a little high. It's like I get it for the production. I do get it, but also I'm kind of like it's no different than any other contract where you're paying him based on projection. So if you still have faith in the player, which they do, then you think you can develop him and he can turn into, a $1.4 million player, then I'm gonna at least give him that chance and see what he can do this year. He's got to show it now. So
I'm kind of happy that going into this year, there's no, what am I trying to say? There's no like mystery with him anymore. Like we know what he is. We tried the third line experiment. We tried playing him with scorers. We tried playing him on the wing. It just doesn't work out. He's a fourth line center, a good defensive player, and he has some playmaking ability. So maybe we can elevate that a little bit. And he's got some stability in the second year too, so that's good for like his mentals and stuff. Like he can go in like, yes, I'm fighting for a job and I'm fighting for a spot in the lineup, but I'm not fighting for a spot in Buffalo. And if you listen to what he said or he posted on Instagram that he loves it here, this is his home. He just got married. I think he just had a kid too. Man, these young
yeah,
kids on our team, they're getting married and having kids at like 22 years old. That's fucking crazy. But this is his home. This is where he wants to raise his family and spend his time with his wife. And I love that. I love that he's dedicated to the city, and I love his tenacity as a player. So if they can bring that out of him and, like you said, rise to the level of a $1.4 million player, then I'm all for trying. And like I said, there's going to be injuries, so he's going to play.
yeah, exactly. Do you think there's any chance they try him on the wings or no?
Every time he's done it so far, it just doesn't go well. Like
Yeah,
he's just not good at it. I like he's just not that guy.
yeah, yeah. Just thinking
But I
because
mean, I
the
could see
log
him
jam
trying.
is
I
there.
in camp, I guess like there's been reports over the last 2 days that he has like spent like a shift or two or like a line rush or two like on the wing, whether that's like the fourth or third line. He's just rotating in, but so they might try it. Like who knows? We have options.
Yeah, I mean, he spoke at the end of last season about he felt like he had a clear view or a clear vision of like what he had to improve and things, and so hopefully we see that this season.
And
He's
and he buried Tage in the first day of training camp. Buried
Yeah,
him.
yeah, exactly,
I like that.
yeah, yeah, and Tage talked about that, and he was talking about the hit and whatnot. And he's like, I did. It's good to have that intensity. He goes, and I didn't think it was like anything over the top or whatever. So we could talk about Tage later because I have some thoughts on Tage, but that was kind of a funny little moment. We're got to give a hat tip here to Kyle Poso, who announced his retirement after 17 NHL seasons. I got a quote I want to go through here that just reading the article that NHL.com posted. Do you want me to do that now, or do you want to say anything about Oposo here first?
No, you go ahead and then we can get into it.
All right, so the NHL.com. That's where I pulled these couple quotes that I'm going to read here. I was reading the article. They posted a nice article about it. Oposo, I know, wrote like his own letter to fans and organizations and things, and it's what you would expect, just classy from a classy guy. But this was kind of a cool quote in the NHL.com article. He said, talking about winning the Stanley Cup and celebrating with his family, he said, "It was nice to sit down and reflect on the journey that I've been on for the last 30 years and take time to soak in how much that trophy means to me. I was with both my sons in the bathroom and we were drinking apple juice out of it, which was a ton of fun." He goes, "That was a cool moment for me. Then at night they had a shindig with really close friends and family, and we had an absolute blast. It was a great time." But like that, the visual of like him drinking apple juice like out of the Stanley Cup with his sons is like
Yeah,
that's so cool, man. And I know we've given him some shit, here, but there's no denying he's a good dude, and he's given a lot to the game of hockey, and hockey's given him a lot back, and now he can retire and enjoy retired life, and continue to watch and root for his teams that he's played for, and the Sabres, with his family, and just have fun living the rest of the life.
yeah, dude, that apple juice quote is like what it's all about. Like I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But hey,
that's
like
so
I
awesome.
guess I can just expand on some thoughts. Like good for him, man. I'm glad that one of like hockey's best like men went out on the highest note possible on his terms after all the injuries he battled through, the detached retina, like all sorts of crazy stuff. The having like he's had multiple kids while he was playing for the Sabres, and like that's an unreal thing to go through. And he was part of our team for so long, and we just wish him the best. Like, I'm glad. I kind of want the Sabres to hire him in some capacity, like when he's ready to get back into hockey, or maybe he coaches youth hockey here when his sons are old enough to play. So we'll see what happens. But the Oposo name is not out of the hockey world yet.
No, and I'm just gonna remind everybody because he won that Stanley Cup, we now get a fifth round pick instead of a seventh. So thanks again
I
for
forgot.
that, Kyle Poson.
Let's go.
All right, so Sabres training camp opened up yesterday on the 18th, and there was there was the sky was falling 5 minutes into camp when you see the reports right away that Darlene leaves with what Ruff afterwards called a mid a mid range body injury. Did you see that interview? Oh my god, it was so funny.
Yeah, he like laughed about it, which like made me think that it wasn't bad. But like when let me know because you're like you're the PT here on the podcast. But when I hear middle body, I think hernia. And if that was like a thing that he had, like we're just speculating here. I have no fucking idea like what a mid body injury could be. But I'm panicking. I'm like, okay, if it's a sports hernia, then maybe he could play through it. But if he can't, it's surgery. And I know like a surgery is like a 3 month recovery, and I'm just like full blown in a panic. But come to find out, I guess he's all right. But what were your thoughts when you heard it?
The thing, well, the thing with hockey and the vagueness is that like when he says like a mid body, like it could be a hand. You know, like he could have been thinking in the moment like, oh, like he passed and like felt something in his hand or his wrist, and like Lindy's not, I mean, I don't know what type of knowledge he has of the human body and all that stuff, but like he probably just like that's in the middle of your body. That's what I mean. Like it could be anything, it could be just like an oblique strain or like a muscular strain or something like that. So there's a lot of different possibilities. It could be, I mean, he could just be having like mid back pain. Like there's a lot, so like, which could just be like spinal or joint related, which that sounds bad, but a lot of times that could just be kind of like a few days of stretching and things like that. So there's a lot of different things that could be. The initial projection is that he's going to miss a few days and hopefully be back with the team. He was on the sidelines or the side the bench. I don't even know what you rink side. Would you say that?
I guess you could say ringside, but dude, we're in. It's so funny
Rink
because we're
side,
in
yeah.
such football mode too. We're in such football mode that it's like, yeah, he's on the sidelines. No, he's on
I
the
know,
bench.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm not ready to say like he's on the bench or anything like that.
yeah. Well, he was on the 50-yard line watching practice, today. So he was with the team. So it seems like it's no big deal, but just like the most Sabres thing to happen like in at the first practice and things uh, but hopefully that's all good. We'll have obviously we'll see as time goes what happens with that. But I found one of the more interesting things that came from the training camp was Kulik playing up in the top six. There was a lot of reports of him playing on line two with Cousins and Quinn, which I think is interesting and exciting at the same time. The thing about the training camp this year is that the Sabres are playing overseas and they're going to be going over there. They're going to be taking their team. So they've talked about how it's different where they don't have a traditional training camp to maybe mess around with things for a few practices. They kind of have to get into things right away. So the initial training camp roster that came out, everyone's kind of assuming like that's going to be pretty close to what we're going to see on opening night. And Kulik's obviously there, and now he's playing up on the line. It's a player we've speculated about potentially being on the roster opening night, and now you see him playing up with Cousins and Quinn. So what do you think in there?
Well, if they give him a real shot, like if he actually sticks on that line, like that could be fun. Going through like my lineup projection, the team is looks infinitely better with Kulik in the lineup and like a Greenway not in the lineup. Like I don't know about you, but I'm kind of leaning more towards him making the team. Like he's got to show out, obviously, and like he has the goal scoring uh, stats in the AHL. They're just asking him to play better D, and he definitely is taking that to heart. And we'll see how that works out in preseason. But If he has a banger of a preseason, I see no reason why he shouldn't start on the team.
Yeah, I mean, because then your top line is what everyone's kind of thinking.
Yeah, it's set in stone.
Tuck, Thompson, Paterka, right? So then in the way that this practice was set up, you have Cousins centering, Quinn, and then Kulik. So those were kind of your top six lines, which like that sounds good. So then your third line would be, of course, McLeod. McLeod was centering Zucker and Greenway, right? That's kind of like what they had.
Bet Benson more than
Oh
like
yeah,
Greenway
Benson,
was
Benson.
yeah Benson was more, Greenway was kind of rotating in there with Benson.
So like that's going back to your point though. Like I would much rather have Kulik up in that top six and that third line be McLeod, Benson, and Zucker. Like that, like
Yeah,
those are like three like really solid lines, I think. And then you have, of course, the remade fourth line, which is going to be Lafferty, Abe Kubel, and then Malenstein, and Krebs is going to fit kind of in there somewhere intermittently or if someone's hot or whatnot. So I'm with you, man. Like Greenway's, I, I don't know. I just he's fine, but it almost feels like he's getting squeezed out at the same time, and I think I kind of want that.
I agree, and so I think Matthew Fairburn might have made this exact point on his podcast today or in the last episode. I'm not sure which one, but I listened to it um, today or the other day. And he was saying like the Florida Panthers, like they rotated throughout the playoffs. They rotated five guys on that fourth line. Like some guys got nights off. You know, if someone was rolling, then they stuck them in there. But they had like a nucleus of five guys that they could rotate in the fourth line. If you could somehow find a way to rotate in a Greenway, a Krebs, a Malenstein, Albe Cabell, and Lafferty, that means all five of those guys are fresh. You can do matchup oriented stuff. Like if you need a bigger body in there, you could put Greenway in there. And, maybe Malenstein needs like a night off. But I kind of don't see Greenway as anything more than a fourth liner anymore. And like you said, I think he's being squeezed out.
My only concern, I guess, would be, and I'd be interested to see what you think here. Is like Greenway was kind of a stud last year when he was playing like on the penalty kill, and like he provided some special teams value there, and then if he's not in the lineup, you're probably not getting that from Zucker or from Kulik. But you can probably get that from the new guys you're thinking, like
Yeah, I'm
Lafferty or Malenstein. Like you think are those guys that you see as like special teams contributors?
I'm telling you right now, with a Lindy team, I don't think you'll see much Tage Thompson on the penalty kill. I think he's going to really lean into these bottom six guys to get to play penalty kill, especially like a guy like McLeod that can use his speed. And then
Hmm.
all of Benson was great in the penalty kill last year. All of
Yeah,
Lafferty, Malenstein, and Albe Cabell have penalty killing experience. So you kind of really don't need a Jordan Greenway in the lineup anymore for penalty kill expertise because all of these guys excel in that.
yeah. Like you said, injuries happen and things. So I think Greenway's a good player to have around, and he's been with the team now for a year, so a year and a half, I think actually. So he's got some
Like
time on
I have
task.
this thought. Let me run this by you. Let's say they do open up against the Devils. Greenway scratched, Krebs scratched, Kulik and Lafferty in the lineup. Doesn't that sound like a more serious NHL team to you?
I love that lineup, man. Like I don't know. I think it's funny because everyone was kind of pissed off, like with what they did this off season, and I think for the past couple months, we've kind of been consistently saying like this is definitely a better team, like they were. And now if you're inserting Kulik in there and you're thinking he can contribute, which by the way, we should probably mention the reason why this is realistic is because he showed out at the Prospects Challenge, scored 5 goals in 3 games, just absolutely dominated. Looked like one of the best, if not the best player for all 6 of those teams combined. So if he's looking ready, and he's talked openly in his media availability how he feels stronger and he feels more confident this season, he's ready to come in and contribute. So there's a lot of momentum right now for Kulik to make this team. So I absolutely think that's a great lineup, because Kulik can provide you some scoring that you're looking to replace from Skinner being out of the lineup. That I don't know, that to me that's a playoff team. That is, like, that's good
And
enough
it
in
works
my
a lot of,
opinion.
yeah. And then it still leaves you with the $8 million that they didn't spend on Jeff Skinner to go out and like make a deal. Hopefully, like at this point, we're crossing our fingers for the fucking team to spend to the cap. Like I've just come to grips with the fact that it's not happening until they make another deal at some point. So hopefully the team is good enough that Terry and Kevin are like, all right, we're gonna get playoff revenue and this is for real and we're gonna make more moves. But if I was just thinking like the NHL roster carries 23 players. So you could bring, your 14 forwards with Krebs and Greenway as your scratches. You bring your 7D, that is 21 players, and then your two goalies, because they're not rolling three goalies anymore. Like, Lindy is not a three goalie guy. Like, I know Adams said that rolling, like, having three goalies is, like, not ideal, and he seemed, like, annoyed that, like, that was what they were doing. But hey, that was his own fault, and it's just something that they dealt with the last couple of years, but you're not going to have that. So the avenue is there for Yuri Kulik to make an impression.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. No, I'm with you, man. I don't think they're gonna do three goalies at all. It was interesting to hear. I want to talk about the goalies here a little bit more in a second, but it was interesting to hear in some of the media availability. Tage especially talked about this, and I didn't really think about this, but when he said this, it made a lot of sense to me, and I've really appreciated Tage's maturation through the years. I was kind of tough on him, like at the beginning of last season and the year prior. Just, I mean, he was still young and developing, but the way he like handles himself like with the media now, and like the confidence that he speaks with, but also the maturity in his responses. I always walk away from his press conferences like smarter as a fan of the game, because he elaborates and explains things well. So I really appreciate the way he's matured as a player. But he was talking about the team this year and how he thinks they're improved, and one of the things that they're really kind of focusing on is the fourth line. He was asked about the fourth line, and he said it's nice knowing that we have like a sturdier fourth line, because if those guys, and Adams talked about this too, if those guys can log like really strong minutes each game, 10 to 12 minutes, it saves them time, because they don't have to be out there as much. So if your fourth line's not out there making mistakes, and then you don't got to get to the penalty kill, you're not getting other players out on the penalty kill, and you're trusting them to play more time, which is saving the legs of your top guys, and then their minutes are more effective. It was just kind of interesting the way that he kind of talked about that, and how they've been talking about conditioning as being like a really important part of this training camp. And you've seen the videos of like Lindy having these guys do push-ups and things. And the last thing I'll say here, Tage was talking about the mental side of things last year, and how at times a lot of them felt gassed or felt winded, and how when you're feeling like that, not only is your play affected, but the mentals, like your decision making is affected, how quickly your processing thing is affected, because you're just feeling the exhaustion of it. So to hear them feeling like they're really trying to balance out like the roster so minutes are more effective, but then also combining that with the conditioning so they're physically, more ready for that. I don't know. I like what I'm hearing right now.
Me too. The push up video is crazy. Like that's something we have not seen a Sabres coach like do since Lindy, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's
And
been he's been he's been working them.
it feels like they're embracing it too. Like they're not complaining. Like they asked for this. They outwardly asked for this at the locker cleanout, and they're getting it. So hopefully, like you said, and like they that it leads to a well conditioned team and a stronger team. And What do you? Okay, so let's jump into captaincy discussion here. So because you brought up Tage and it got my wheels spinning.
Hmm.
So obviously
I want to
Darlene is
come back to
next.
goalies too in a second, but we'll do it
Okay,
after
we
this.
can do goalies after. So Darlene, obviously, we both agree that is the next captain of the Buffalo Sabres. He
Yeah.
earned it. It's his team. It's been his team probably for 2 seasons now. He should have got it last year. It's his team. So there's going to be a leadership group, obviously, but traditionally, two assistant captains. Who are your two assistant captains?
So I I have one in pen right now for me, and that's
Okay.
Tage.
Wow,
For me, it is
interesting. Okay,
Tage.
I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting
Yep.
that.
Yeah. The other one that I would write in pencil would be Tuck, but I will say there is something. I'm going to shout out the Matt Fairburn show too because they were talking about this, and
I know you're going to say, not going to like it.
I'm with him. I'm with him. I forget who it is
It
because
was
I'm
it
still
was
like
Baker.
okay. So I'm with Baker. He kind of just talked about how like there's something with Tuck where he just doesn't feel it, and I kind of get that too a little bit. Like if he got the A, I think it'd be fine, but there's just like this little spot of like I don't know, like questioning in my head or skepticism in my head of like, would that be the best decision? Because I also think there are some other choices, which for me would be Dylan Cousins. So I would for I guess my answer would be Darlene C. For me, that's a no brainer. Tage with one of the A's, and then kind of pencil in either Tucker Cousins for the second one.
The Cousins discussion is very interesting to me because I feel like there's a little bit of mythology when it comes to Dylan Cousins. He's a 6'3". He did gain another 12 pounds this summer. So
And
going
he's
into
got a
that
sweet
frame, if he can,
stash.
well, if he can lean into more of that power style, like then I guess he can, lean into the legend of Dylan Cousins a little bit. But throughout his career, he kind of hasn't been the player that everyone thinks he is. Like he's mainly a goal scorer. He's a decent playmaker. Is terrible defensively. Terrible. Like he has not been good defensively his career. And he's 6'3", over 200 pounds. Like, do you think that he would be lighting people up on the boards and using his body more? But it's complicated for me because I can see the leadership ability, especially when he talks to the media. Like he does ooze leadership.
Hmm.
But last year he got his fucking eye pumped shut and then played like a like a baby for 70 games and wasn't physical and had a horrible season. So I don't think, excuse me, I don't think that I'm ready to give him a letter when personally all I want to do is see him go play hockey and be the best player he is and not have to worry about that.
All right. Well, so then let me ask you this question then. What, why are you so convinced Tuck displays that leadership? Like, what about Tuck says he needs the A? Because I don't see it as much, and I'm just wondering what has he shown you there?
Well, let me make clear that I also don't think I'm not in the condition of people that think that Tuck should be the captain either. Like I think the people that think that are a little bit out to lunch and like in denial about whose hockey team this is. But Tuck's a little bit of a he's older. He's been on Stanley Cup Finals teams. He's been on playoff teams. He's played up and down the lineup, so he knows what is expected from a first liner. He knows what's expected from a third liner. And I don't know. He's local. He kind of knows what the area is all about. And I know that's not that like important, but like you said, I guess you can't really go wrong here. I mean, I prefer Tuck. I could see why Cousins could be an option. I'm nervous about giving a 22-year-old that had a terrible season like a letter. Like in all honesty, I think I would give Samuelson a letter over Cousins.
Here's my pitch for Cousins.
Okay.
Samuelson is like a good mention, I think. I'm gonna talk about Samuelson for just a quick minute because then I want to go back to Cousins. Glowing endorsement from Lindy for Samuelson, which I was not expecting. He talked about how he likes his play and how he felt like the Sabres really missed him when he wasn't in the lineup last season. So I know Lindy Ruff likes
every
him a
season.
lot. So that's just yes, yeah, exactly. So that's something to look out for. But here's my pitch for Dylan Cousins. When the Sabres were struggling last season, I don't think Cousins was one of the players who was struggling more than anybody, arguably. Like last year was not a good season for Dylan Cousins. You could tell he was you could tell that he was in his head a little bit, but I also appreciate the realness talking to the media. I didn't feel like I got that a lot of times with like talk last season as far as like coming out to the media and just kind of giving some real like raw emotional responses, which I think you need in a leader. I also think that that entire like year of adversity and all the shit that he went through is like a good lesson for a player like him to be like, hey, like I've kind of been like at a very low point already, and I kind of worked out of it, and I'm here to like kind of like take that next step and lead. So I think some of that adversity can actually kind of help him as he's looking to kind of like take that next step, and maybe getting a letter would kind of solidify some of that for him. He also gives you something different as far as that leadership goes. If you're looking for like different like leadership styles, where like Darlene's kind of like the lead by example on the ice. Like he's your best player, he's your most competitive player. Tage, I feel like is very cerebral and and is understanding the game, and again kind of leads by play on the ice and finesse, and is a player that people look up to. But Cousins is kind of like he's kind of like your brawn. He's kind of like your muscles, and like can be an enforcer if you need him. So I feel like it could kind of like complete the trio in a way. But there's options, like you said.
Yeah, I like your pitch. I respect your pitch. I
All right.
will not complain either way what they do. And like even sneaky, like I think this would be a clown shoes move, but they could be they could do something really dumb and give like Jason Zucker the other A.
No, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think they give
I don't
Byram
either, but
the A over it.
if Don was here, I could see it happening. But I think Lindy kind of has his pulse a little bit like more on the team,
Yeah. Now Zucker's just here to get his 5 million and see if he can up his point total and
and he can. And
get a
as a
contract
divorced
next year.
dad, he can wheel all the single ladies, all the single
There you
moms.
go. There you go. There you go. But that's the thing with like, and this is the last thing I'll say. Then we can get into goalies. Where like, if you're gonna say for like Tuck that like you could always been in like the playoffs and things. It's like, well, I mean, there's an argument for Byram. I mean, Byram's won a cup, so it's like,
Yep.
but obviously you're not probably not going to give Byram the A, so it's just it'll be interesting to see what they do.
And just because guys, just because they don't get a letter doesn't mean they can't be leaders. Like I can see all these guys being a part of a very strong leadership group, and it's fine.
Yeah. And who knows if they even give out A's? I mean, they could just give the C and that's it, or they could just do one C and one A. Like you don't know what they're gonna do. So, but it's kind of
Classic Lindy Ruff rotating letters like he did in the 2000s. Just everyone gets an A, just like monthly.
yeah, yeah. He could switch it up too. It's a fun thing to talk about though. I don't know why I
It
enjoy
is.
talking about it as much as I do. But let's talk about the goalies here because it it seems like it's gonna be UPL and Levi. I know we kind of talked about like is Levi gonna be
Yep.
in
I'm
Rochester?
a bit shocked.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I think it's gonna be them and Levi and UPL or Ruff, I should say, has kind of he pretty much has said like those are his guys and he's gonna play the hot hand. So it's not guaranteed that just because of the contract that UPL is going to be out there every night. If Levi gives the team the best chance to win, just like his skill position players, that's who's going to be in the net. But it sounds like it's going to be UPL and Levi.
Yeah. I mean, give UPL the first runway, and if he struggles, I have full confidence in Devin Levi. Like I'm not. I love UPL and I love Levi. So if we have our own mini tandem of like Swayman Allmark, then hey, who's to say you can go wrong here? So I'm happy with it. I'm a bit surprised that James Reimer signed a deal to ride the bus in the AHL, considering he hasn't played in the AHL in like 15 years. But that's a nice third option to call up if he sneaks through waivers, of course. Because if we have injuries, this is the Buffalo Sabres. Of course, we always have injuries. That's a good sneaky little like contingency option for us. But UPL and Levi, they're here and they're going to push each other as hard as possible.
Yep, yep, and that's good. I think that competition is good, and I think that now that UPL has the confidence of playing so well to end the season last year and the contract, I feel like having the pressure of Levi there will be easier for him to handle. Because I think he's just more confident with his game, and now he's got the backing of the team as well. So I'm not too worried about goalie. I feel really, really solid there with the two of them. So, all right, you want to do some Western Conference talk now?
Yeah, let's jump into the Western Conference. We're just gonna give like a little bit of our favorite little storylines. Not gonna break down every team, that's so monotonous, and
Yeah,
we've already given like a little bit of our takes about around the league stuff. So we just want to talk about a few fun storylines to watch out for on the good old West Coast.
that was a great intro, man. I feel like I usually am doing these like intros and like these transitions. That was a nice little segment you just did
Well,
there.
I'm learning from the best.
But this is growth, man. We did the previews last year, and we were like, this is too much. I'm like, and like we can do this way better. So that's why we're doing it this style
Well, I
this
feel
year,
like
just kind of
I feel
giving
like
you
we
what we want to talk about.
I feel like when we did the previews last year, people shut it off 20 minutes in because it was just so boring.
Yeah, it was just too much. It was just too much, and it was like it was so much research where we're also getting smart there. Where like less work is better for the both of us. Absolutely. So I'm gonna start this one off, and then I'll let you go with kind of like your one at the bottom there that you listed
Yep.
in there. But I'm gonna go. I think the biggest thing for me this year, and what I'm kind of weirdly excited about, is the Utah Hockey Club. I think I'm excited because I like their jerseys so much, and I was on their website a little bit earlier, dude. Their website is like nice and like it's fresh. There's a lot on there, it seems like it seems like they're like kind of got a good like thing in place, and I don't know. It's just cool to have a new league in the team. I'm just excited to like see
A new
all
league
right
in the
how
team.
or a new to have a new team in the league. I'm just excited to see like all right like what do their home games look like who's like some early rivals that they're having some fun tilts with, like early on in the season, and like is there a team that kind of has their number early on and then they kind of smack later on, like just everything, like how do the jerseys look on the ice, because like I'm excited for that. I also think they have some like intriguing players between Logan Cooley, Tej Ginla, Dylan Gunther, Matthias Michelli, and then they signed Sergachev, who people wanted to be here in Buffalo. So it's besides having like I besides the fact that I think they're going to have like a decent like on ice product, I'm just excited to see it kind of all come together. Growth for the NHL is fun. I know this isn't necessarily growth; it's kind of replacing Arizona and the mess that they were, but still, it's a team and a a place that's going to do good for the NHL.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this as well. Their owner Ryan Smith is like so bullish on getting this franchise into the winning ways. I feel like I've liked individual pieces on this roster for like years. Like Clayton Keller, like you said, Michelli's good. They traded for Sergachev. Like, dude, like they drafted Logan Cooley third overall last year, and he had an okay rookie season. There's a lot of intrigue. And did you see that Clayton Keller kind of leaked the team name the other day in his media
No, I didn't
availability?
see that.
He wasn't supposed to say anything, but he said that I think they're leaning toward calling him the Yeti.
Yeah, I kind of figured, right?
It's the best one. They have to. So I'm excited to see what they do. And like it's a new franchise with like the same players, so it's interesting. But those guys gotta be so happy that they're in a new spot. That like the weight of the Phoenix and Coyotes and the later Arizona Coyotes franchise is not weighing on them anymore. They're not. They don't. They have a permanent home. So I can see this team like starting out a little bit hot and like being one of the NHL's like surprises of October, which is fun because
Hmm.
they got a lot of fun players.
Yeah, it's a team I'm gonna be watching a lot of in the beginning of the season.
Yep.
Well, throughout the season, I think. But
Dude,
I just want to see. All right, how does it look at home? Like their fans are probably going to be crazy because like that's so fun and exciting to like have a new thing like in the area, and that just it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool to see.
yeah, I agree. I was just looking at my phone because I just got a trade rejected in our fantasy league, so I was a little pissed.
Oh,
Um,
you're just tilting right now.
yeah, I had a trade that just got rejected live on air. Um, yeah, I don't
I
really have much else.
rejected a trade earlier.
I don't have really much else to add with them. It's exciting and it's fun.
No, that's fine. Let's go on to Vegas.
The Vegas Golden Knights. They lost pieces and they added some mid, dude. Okay, so
Some mid.
this team, I've been just like, I guess they've been the NHL's like evil villain for the last how like even ever since they stepped in the league. Like it was fun that first year that they made the final, and then they won a cup, and it's like, all right, this is kind of bullshit. Like they just got here. Like how are they winning a cup? And now they're like full blown NHL's evil villain.
Yeah, they
But
really
this
are.
roster, when you look at it, the scoring, where are they getting scoring from? Like, yes, Jack Eichel, premier center in the league. We know all about him. He's incredible. Mark Stone, kind of always injured, or if not, like injured to the point where he's missing time, just injured on the ice, just like fighting through something. Thomas
Hmm.
Hurdle had like kind of didn't fit in
No.
last year at the end, and I'm very curious to see how he fits in. Their roster is just a little old. Like they lost a lot of pieces, and they're openly discussing about relying on Victor Olofsson on he's playing on line one with Jack Eichel. I don't
Yep.
know if they're gonna rekindle that magic that they had together because we've seen Victor Olofsson play hockey, and for the most part, it's not pretty. They're also relying on Alexander Holtz to step in and play in the top six. And don't ask Lindy Ruff about Alexander Holtz because he couldn't get ice time under Lindy Ruff, and he kind of wasn't great for New Jersey when Lindy Ruff was fired. So I don't know where the scoring's going to come from, and we all know that their D is brilliant. Like their defense is the best in the league in my opinion, and their goaltending with Aiden Hill as their starter, very good goalie. So I could see them winning a lot of games. I just don't think it'll be very pretty.
Yeah, the defense can win you a bunch if you can score enough. This team for me is kind of is intriguing because of Olison. Like I want to see what he does over there. And then also, did you see this news that came out about Leonard too? Like he's not like
Yeah, he's
gonna.
not. He didn't even report, dude. He didn't report, so he can't get his money either. Like that's a crazy move.
Yeah, what I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if it's. I mean, I know he's got a history of
I
some
didn't
things,
know.
but like, yeah. So you don't want to
Yeah,
speculate, I guess, but
yeah.
but he's not
You
there.
kind of gotta hope that you kind of gotta hope that he's like okay, like doing okay mentally.
Yeah,
But he
exactly.
didn't report, and they're putting him on LTIR, and they already
Hmm.
said that he's not going to play for the Vegas Golden Knights this year. So
Yeah,
it's
so it's Aiden
just a
Hill and
weird,
Samsonov.
yeah, it's a weird situation going on there.
Yeah, they're a team who it is going to be interesting to see what they do because not that I expect them to be in the bottom of the division, but if this was I do anticipate them to take a step back. If this was a division that was perhaps stronger and there was like more competition, then they're a team I think I could potentially be like, okay, like they could be like a fringe, wild card team based on like the fact that I do think their scoring is going to be down. I just think that division is outside of the top four teams that we're assuming are going to kind of be good again. I don't think there's enough competition that's going to kind of push them, out of a playoff spot. But it'll be intriguing to watch the start of this season, nonetheless, just to kind of see how these pieces are all coming together, and if Hurdle in fact is someone who can start gelling because he's someone they're counting on, and he,
Right.
for whatever reason, it was off, last year. The second thing I'm kind of looking forward to here is Connor Bedard in year two. So he was the Calder Cup Trophy winner. Everyone knows Connor Bedard, 22 goals, 39 assists last season. He played 68 games, missed like 15 or 14 with the jaw injury, but 61 points in 68 games. I mean, as a rookie, almost like already like a point per game player. This guy's going to be unbelievable. But Chicago is a team that has improved some of its depth. He has some more NHL level talent around him. So I'll just be kind of interested to see like what he can do in year two. I think he had like a really strong first season, and he's going to be a stud. Yeah. So I wonder. I should have looked up like some of his like FanDuel, props and whatnot, like points, and I assume they probably have him like at like a point per game.
Yeah, I would assume so. I'm excited for Bedard year two as well, especially because that Blackhawks team is still really bad. But they did add Tyler Bertuzzi, and they did add Jason Dickinson. So like they added like, actual NHLers and Pat Maroon too to help guide him.
Hmm.
But I mean that team is still just the Connor Bedard show basically.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
still
he
gonna
he might have
be.
like a go ahead.
I was gonna say it's still gonna be like there's obviously still gonna be like a lot of buzz and things around him, but there was so much hype last season, like with him coming into the season, and then there was like all this shit that happened, like outside the ice that he needed to address during the season, and it's just like I feel like coming into your second year, a little bit of improvement in the team around you, like he can kind of focus on hockey a little bit more. So I think that'll help him. Also, of course, having a year under your belt, you kind of know, what to expect. So I think he can just kind of like take off this season and just kind of dominate. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch him play. He's exciting.
I totally agree.
Yeah, that rookie year for him is crazy. It's kind of like Macklin Celebrini is going to deal with this year, and that's someone we're going to talk about next with the San Jose Sharks, because the San Jose Sharks are the team that I'm interested in coming into
I'm
this
excited
Western
too.
Conference.
I was gonna write San Jose, and you already had it on there, so I didn't even have to. I'm excited to
Yeah,
watch San Jose, man.
yeah, I kind of figured. I saw you add the Knights and then a couple other things, and I was like, I'm pretty sure you probably want to talk about the same things, which is why this works, because everyone wants to kind of see the same things. And it's weird how you kind of like a lot of the times you're looking for like what the bad teams are going to do, because the good teams are like probably going to be like the good teams again, and it's like, okay, you know what to expect there, but what are some of these other teams going to do? But you assume Mac and Celebrini and Will Smith are good. I'm pretty sure they're going to be like the youngest like top two centers like pair like in history of
Yeah,
the
and
NHL.
an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old.
Yep. So that's going to be interesting to see, what they do in year one here. You have the whole aspect of Askarov coming over from Nashville, and is he going to, how much game time is he going to command? And they did add, decent scoring options to that top six with additions of Tyler Toffoli and Wenberg. So they're still gonna they're still gonna kind of suck most likely, but they should be way more exciting than they were last year.
Yeah, Mike Greer had a hell of an offseason, in my opinion. He's building that team the right way, and you love to see the former Sabre, start off on the right foot. Which defenseman did he steal? Oh, Wallman. He stole Wallman from Detroit. Like
Yeah,
Detroit
for like
added a
free.
second round pick to get rid of Wallman, and now he's on San Jose, and he is going to be their best defender. But once they get a couple more guys around him, that's a nice piece on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah. You kind of talked about how he's not like necessarily like a top defender, and he's probably more like a 3-4 guy, But like on that team, he's like their stud guy,
yeah, I know.
Speaks to some of the makeup. But I do think Greer had a good off season, and it'll be fun to watch them. Plus, they got sweet jerseys, so we'll see what they do this year. All right,
Another
we'll
team that
go
we
in.
have on here is the Edmonton Oilers, the Stanley Cup runner-up from last year. They currently open the season as the favorites at plus
Read these other
850,
names. Read these other names. I want to see. There's got to be one surprise in there.
followed by the Florida Panthers at plus 1,000. New Jersey, Colorado, and Dallas all at plus 1,100, and the Rangers at plus 1,300. We're going into another season of New Jersey Devils hype that is
That's the
completely off the
team.
rails. Completely off the rails.
Plus 1100.
They do not deserve to be, tied for third most cup favorite. Like I'm not seeing it. Like they got a good team, and we'll do our Eastern Conference, you know, previews next week. But third in the league,
They're getting hyped. They're getting mega hyped.
mega hype. Like that's crazy. But the Oilers, man, it's the McDavid and Draisaitl show. Draisaitl just got his massive deal. He's the highest paid player in hockey. They added, someone who we love very dearly in Jeff Skinner, and I'm excited to see whether or not he clicks on a scoring line because I mean, Jeff Skinner getting fed pucks from McDavid is like Buffalo Sabres fan nightmares because Jeff Skinner easily can put up 30 goals, 30 plus with McDavid, even though, I kind of don't think he's going to be able to keep up with that speed and play that way, but I can see it happening because we're an absolutely cursed fan base. And Victor Arvidsson, bring him in too. He's a good little player, streaky player. When he's not injured, he's a scorer. This team, it's once again, it's about McDavid, it's about Draisaitl, it's about Bouchard, and it's about those goaltenders. And the ancillary pieces kind of don't matter that much when all is said and done because with those big guns, they'll carry them into the playoffs.
I'm just ready for like more of these like highlight reel goals from Zach Hyman.
You mean he just taps? He's the ultimate tap in merchant.
I remember that TikTok. I think you sent it to me. You know what I'm talking about? Where it was like this young hockey guy. It's like Zach Hyman in the playoffs, and it's like he just shows him like he's playing with like floor hockey sticks. He just shows him like a puck going off his chest, and then like just like doing like a golf tap like in the net. But that was such a
Hey,
funny
you got
video.
going to the net is a skill, man. Going to the net is an
No,
absolute
for
skill.
sure, for sure. So we kind of titled this like, "Can Edmonton follow up from last season?" I think you you wonder about the goalies and like how strong they're going to be. You're kind of banking on like last season, like the offensive prowess to kind of overpower that, which it certainly can. I think they're far and away the favorite to come out of the West this season, and I'd be surprised if they didn't have another strong season under Knobloch in season two here.
Do you remember last season? Well, obviously, like their coach got fired and they lost like, you know, 9 of their first 10 games.
Yep.
Like that just goes to show with this team and McDavid and Draisaitl and all the gang, you can dig them so they can dig themselves out of any hole and ride that wave all the way to the Stanley Cup game finals, game 7, and almost win the whole thing. So
Yep.
I'm not going to panic if I see the Oilers are struggling in the beginning because that firepower will definitely keep them afloat for the whole season.
Yeah, I mean they won like whatever 17 games in a row. Dug themselves right out of that hole, and then even in the even in the playoffs, they were down 3 games to 2 to Vancouver at one point. They won those
Yep.
last 2 games, to get to the finals, and they so I think last season was a good year for them to kind of go through some things and kind of overcome some adversity. That can do a lot for a team going into the next season. You kind of learn from those experiences, and you have good time on task with going through some hardships. So yeah, Edmonton's just another strong team going into next year. Anything else you want to talk about here in the West specifically?
We've been gushing about Nashville all summer, but I'm just so excited to see this like almost super team, you know, try to weasel their way into like a division lead here. adding Stamkos, adding Marchessault. They rolled with Saros. They gave him an extension, traded away Askarov, like you said. So Saros has all the reassurances that he is still the guy. This team is going to be so much fun. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how Stamkos gels with this team in a new city, and they're going to be a good team, man.
Yep. Yep, for sure. All right, let's do. You ready for predictions? Let's do
Yeah,
predictions.
yeah. So I have my predictions for the playoffs as follows.
What do you
I
want
think
to do? Let's go division. Let's go division by division first.
so. I have the
So let's
same
start.
8 teams making the playoffs total, and then we'll start in the Central Division.
All right,
I've got Dallas winning the Central Division, followed by Nashville and Colorado.
that's exactly what I have.
Okay.
I got Dallas, Nashville, Colorado.
In the Pacific Division, I've got Edmonton, followed by Vancouver and Los Angeles.
Okay, I have Edmonton, Vancouver, and then I got Vegas
Okay.
in the third spot.
My wild card teams are Winnipeg as wild card 1 and Vegas sneaking in as wild card 2.
Yeah, and then I got Winnipeg wild card one, and then the LA Kings wild card two. So we're pretty much chalk
So
on that, with
we literally
exception
just
of Vegas and LA.
we literally just flip flop those two, and that's so funny.
Well, there's no, I can't see. Okay, so I think the Pacific is like the top four teams. Like, here's the thing. Here's the thing about me in the Pacific. Like, I think Vancouver and Edmonton are shoo-ins, and I think Vegas is as well, just because, like, again, they're a team that they just kind of figure it out. Even so, I have to kind of see them their demise before I believe it. So I think they can figure it out. LA is the one team I'd like to question. Like, can they get in? But then I look at those bottom four teams. It's like, are you gonna really get competition from Calgary, Seattle, Anaheim, or San Jose this season? I don't think so.
Seattle is the one team I could see maybe pushing for wild card 2.
Yeah, yeah. Out of those four, I mean, that's the only team in, at least in that division, that I could see. The Central's a little bit more interesting because I do think you have kind of a clear cut bottom between Chicago and I. As much as it pains to say me, I'd probably have to put Utah there as well. Although I would like to see them do good this season. St. Louis and Minnesota are interesting to me, teams to maybe kind of keep an eye on as like mid tier teams. But again, I just kind of feel like those other four teams are just stronger, lineup wise. So that's kind of why I have them there. But if there's an area I think where our predictions could be wrong, I think it would fall in the Central this season.
I agree because like Winnipeg could maybe. I mean, I know Winnipeg had a brilliant season. They're a good team, but maybe they fall out in like a Minnesota like challenges or like who else can like a Nashville like what if those guys don't gel
Right.
and a team can and they fall out like who sneaks in that spot? But I feel like the West is really just chalk. I really do.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. But all right, this was fun. This was fun. I like doing it this way. Anything else you want to get to here before we finish?
Um, just no, not really. Also, concerning the West with Vancouver, I wanted to add that like nobody really knows what's going on with Thatcher Demko, and if he misses time or is unhealthy, that is a very scary proposition for them. Like I know that Latvian goalie, I can't remember his name
Yeah, she
at this
loves.
moment. Like he played
Artur
with
she loves.
Sheila Archer she loves. You're right. Okay, I
I love
know
she
he held it
loves.
down. I know he held it down in the playoffs, and he's got like low key like a good pedigree, like reputation to step into the league. But counting on him to be your starter, I feel like that's a risky proposition. And I really hope that Thatcher Demko can be healthy and play a full season.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing that could throw a wrench into any of these plans is injuries, and you don't know what's going to happen with these. There's always those couple teams each year too, where it's like they get banged with injuries more than anyone else, and it's like, all right, well, that levels the playing field between them and a lot of these teams. So that can derail any of these teams, especially a goaltender injury where there's not a lot of depth. We saw that last season. You know, it was either you were playing really good and you were top tier, or you were really, really bad. And then we even saw some of those hot goalies last year not even play as good. Look at Sorokin, you know, over in New York, you know, or New Jersey, I should say. You know, like he still had a good season, you know, but it wasn't like what he was used to, you know. So there's just inconsistency there. So injuries can affect anything.
Agreed.
Did I get that wrong though? Like the Islanders are they're in technically New Jersey, right?
No, they're in Long Island. You're wrong. I was
But
waiting
they're
for you
not
to correct
like.
yourself. No.
Why was I thinking like obviously you got the New Jersey Devils, but why was I thinking like the New York Rangers were in like New York, and then the Islanders were like on the other side?
Well, they play on Long Island. Like that is like they play in Nassau County, like like New York. You
Yeah,
might
but
be
Long
thinking of like
Island,
you're
Long
thinking of
Island's
like
long.
football.
Like, isn't part of Long Island like Jersey? Like, isn't like
No, it's part of New York. You're thinking of football because both the Jets and the Giants play in New Jersey.
you know what? It's my own fault for bringing up the Islanders, anyways. Like, I should just
I
leave
know.
them out of
I know. You just sounded like you didn't know puck there, and we had a great episode, and now I'm disappointed.
it. No, it's more the geography of things that I get confused.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. New York, New Jersey, same fucking thing. They would not like to hear that at all.
All right, well, that's gonna do it for today. We're ending on a solid note, very strong note tonight. And but if you're listening, you know what to do. Follow us on Twitter at Sabres Spotlight. We're gearing up for the season here, so that's where it's going to be all season long. You can engage with us as the games are starting up here. We do have Instagram now as well, which I'm still kind of learning how to use that, and but so that's kind of up and in the works. The YouTube channel has been up for a while. We post all these videos to YouTube, so check that out as well. But as of right now, those are the three big socials. If you have any feedback, questions, comments for the show, you can always email us and the email down below as well. But with that, that's going to wrap it up for this week. We will be back with you guys next week, as always, and stay safe in the Sabrehood. See you.
See ya.
Nice.